And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. So today I have my good friend Beth from the Made for TV Movie Podcast. We're here to talk about John Candy. I Like Me. This is the documentary review. Let's talk about this. This is such a deep conversation, and it's such a moving documentary. Let's go on ahead. Let's talk about it. Hey, Beth, welcome back.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me back. I'm so excited to talk about this one.
Me too. I've been wanting to talk about this since the documentary got released, but I figured what better way to do this than in October during the month that he was actually born,
Right. That's so exciting. His birthday.
October 31st.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So it's on Friday. Yeah. Awesome.
Right. So, I really love the fact that we're able to do this review, and this is kind of like us just celebrating his life and
Yeah.
just talking about this because you and I, we reviewed a lot of John Candy movies with
A
John
lot.
Hughes
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So this is coincides with everything that we reviewed and everything that we touched on as far
Mm-hmm.
as John Candy as an actor.
Yeah.
But I just love the opening of the doc with Bill Murray
Yeah.
and him saying that it's hard to find something negative to say about John Candy. Because I hope that you find someone that you can find something negative about him. Oh wait, there is something negative I can say about him. And then it cuts into the whole entire funeral thing. But what did you think of seeing Bill Murray over on it?
Well, I loved that opening. I thought it was so sweet. And the best part about it is that nobody did say anything negative about him. And I thought that was really lovely because you got the feeling with all of these people that they they really had a deep affection for him and they didn't really find any fault. And it's hard to believe that somebody has no fault in this day and age, but with John Candy, I really believe these people. I mean, and usually, like 30 years later, if you really had some pent up feelings or whatever, you're going to say it. But that's how I loved how the film opens because I just love that sentiment. And at first, I'm like, oh gosh, what are they going to say? And then, he's like, oh, I thought of something. And then it cuts. And I love that. I thought it was so clever.
I did too because it keeps us on our toes to know what was said negatively about him. Because
Hmm.
I always have a saying like I want to be a lot more like John Candy. You know what I'm saying? Because he was
Yeah.
more of the giver and always had time for people and loved people around him. And he looked at people as people. He didn't look at himself as this person, as this actor that we see him as. He sees himself as like an everyday person. So
Yeah.
that's what I liked about him.
Right. I got that distinct feeling that he felt very human feelings. Like he seemed to be very, had anxiety and sort of
Mhm.
like questioned himself and questioned his abilities and questioned his weight and questioned how it was he as a father. I mean, he seemed very real in that respect, not like maybe a movie star who you would never get the feeling that they have any inequity about
Right.
themselves. But you get the feeling that John really did feel, but I think he felt a deep love for everybody as well, even though he sort of questioned his ability to parent being far away and, being a spouse and stuff like that. So, one thing that they don't bring up and you never hear about, I mean, he just didn't seem to have a lot of vices. He didn't seem to be doing a lot of things that would have made the tabloids or anything like that,
No.
which I really respect about him. They did say that he smoked and drank, but I mean, that's everybody. A lot of people do
Right.
that,
I see that
especially
as a
back then.
minor thing compared to
Yeah,
today's
very.
time.
Right, right. So I like that because I think that he was very human.
It shows he's very human, very professional. But that's what I love about him is the fact that, he's his family man, and that's what he looks at himself as a family man. And as a
Right.
family man, he'll drink, he'll smoke, and that's it. And
Yeah.
do his job and come home and just be a family man, be a dad to his son and daughter. And the thing that I want to capture here is like, but he died on March 18th, 1994 in Toronto, Canada. John Kennedy's funeral. Dan Aykroyd speaking it's very heartwarming. That part made me tear up
Yeah.
knowing that, Dan is so close to him, and it just breaks my heart to see him having to talk again about death because of John Belushi
Right.
feel like John was even more of a bigger part in his life than Belushi was too.
Do you remember what year Belushi passed away? I can't remember. It was the late 80s?
It was in 1982, I want to say.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of loss there, and obviously he felt it. And I think for me, the most touching part of that funeral was when they were talking about it.
In
And
1982.
okay, and they were talking about. I think it was Martin Short who said, and Eugene Levy both were talking about how they were driving. Maybe it was Dan Aykroyd. You might have to remind me. Was drive. They noticed when they were driving across the bridge that they shut down the entire
Yeah.
freeway for him, and that it only happened one other time, I think, for a president.
Yeah, it was for the president and for John Candy and the Pope.
Oh, that's right, the Pope. Yeah. And I was like, I mean, I was already crying. I pretty much cried throughout this entire movie. Right after Bill Murray did that first couple of minutes, I started crying immediately. But that made me just feel I felt so like what a show of respect.
I agree. This is how you know you made it, like Eugene Levy said. That's how you know you made it, is
Yeah.
when they shut down the whole entire freeway for you in remembrance of you. And then it was Dan Aykroyd that was actually speaking
Okay, thank
on
you.
that. You're very welcome. But it just makes me happy that John actually went out on top in a sense, even though his movies like Wagon Z's didn't even do that good at the box office or anything like
Right.
that. But he still managed to hold the respect outside of the life of a movie star,
Right.
and he had everybody's respect, from the
Right.
football team to the place that he lived and never forgot where he came from. And it's just heartfelt and very heartwarming to see that part of him.
Right. Right. And he did make, I mean, they talked about some films that he made that were a little bit, didn't do that well. And it was possibly because he was the guy who didn't want to say no. And, or he felt, I mean, part of it could have been too that like, he was a bona fide celebrity. Everybody loved him. He made some really huge hits that people really, really loved. And so I think maybe he sort of felt like he wanted to either pay people back for that or he wanted to help people along in their career. So he said yes to things that, maybe other people would have said don't do. But I mean, when you have a career like that, of course you're going to make some clunkers. I mean, even Tom Hanks has made some not great movies, and it's
Right.
just the way it is. But when you look at things 20, 30, 40 years later, they might not look like bad movies anymore. Sometimes the test of time just makes things rise better. So I
Right.
think that everything he did, I mean, you and I talked about Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. That was my favorite movie. And I loved when Steve Martin talked about working with him on that film.
I did too. I liked how he said, I didn't really have to do anything. All I had to do was be annoyed by his presence, and that was it. That's all I had to do. Candy did all the work. I just
Right.
went on ahead and added more to what I was being annoyed by.
Right. I mean, it
And
was such a great point because I mean, that's a film that I cried through. Probably one of my favorite John Candy films. Probably one of the best John Candy and Steve Martin, both of their careers was defining because it's such a beautiful movie. And it's not a comedy in the sense that yes, it's very funny, but it's also there's that underlying sadness throughout the entire film. And then when you find out what happens at the end, so I love that he gave John Candy so much credit because I think that Steve Martin is so talented as well. I think he was probably being very humble in his discussion, but once you hear him talk about it, you really start to see how much he did in that film. There was not a lot of action, there was just a lot of them hanging out together through the different things and talking really. I mean,
right,
yeah, they went long distances, but that wasn't the point of the movie at all. The point was the two of them playing off of each other.
exactly. Because that's what he was. That's basically what John Candy is
Yes.
improvisation. And some actors have a hard time dealing with it. And we actually get to hear from that from every single actor. But you're right, though. They're playing off of each other. They're playing off each other's motions. Then you find out why it's not fair for Steve Martin's character to go home while the person that he's been with, who's trying to get him home, doesn't have anyone to go home to. And then there's that emotional barrier of like, I gotta be the better person and bring him to my house for
Right,
Thanksgiving.
right. And I was like, if they show that again, I'm just, what am I gonna do? You know what I mean? I'm already
Right?
crying, and I'm like, not the end.
And they did show it. They showed like a brief clip of it, but I love that they played homage to every single one of his films,
Yeah,
acknowledged some of the stuff within his films. Like I said, he was born in 1950, October 31st, and Sidney is actually John's father, and he dies at age 35.
right,
And he had to be the one who had to take care of the family. John was at such a
right.
young age. It's like, okay, it's time for the presents, but your dad's not here to actually help you open the presents or anything. You have to be the one to do that. And I'm like, wow, that's such a deep thing to go through. And they're right, though. Someone who has to go through that much stuff at age 5, and you would think that there would be something wrong, like trauma, or this person would not come out the way he did on top of everything out that he was faced with. But John Candy didn't do that. He just basically put his head forward and said, and subconsciously saying, "This is my situation. I just got to keep moving and be and do this."
Yeah, because they also said, I believe that his mother, after his John Candy's father dies, his mother moved in with, I believe, her parents, right? And
Right.
they just didn't talk about him, which I don't think was super uncommon for that time period. I think that might be a generational thing. But I think that he probably carried that through the rest of his life. And he probably, made note, my dad died when he was 35. I'm this age now. I'm this age now. I'm this age now. I think that
Right.
that probably was something that stayed with him throughout his life.
Well, remember, they did say that John was saying, "Well, my dad was 40 something years old, 35 years old."
Mhm.
And he has that whole entire anxiety of the fact, am I going to die at an early age where I can't see my own kids grow up, just as my father couldn't see me grow up? And that was a
Right.
lot of the fear and the anxiety that he was dealing with
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I mean, and the irony is that his kids did basically grow up. I mean, I think I can't remember, was his daughter 11 or maybe she was 14. I mean, they were young and the son
Right. They
was
were
younger.
right. I remember the age.
Yeah, I don't either, but it was definitely before she was 15. It was either 11 or 14, I can't remember. That's very young. I mean, I had a friend who, and my
Oh,
grandfather passed away when my aunt was very young. So there is, that is a very traumatic time for everybody.
Jennifer was approximately 14 years old, and his
Okay.
son Chris was approximately 8 years old
Okay.
when he died. So there's a little bit of context with it. But yeah, it's just sad to see them having to go through that struggle of losing their dad and trying to figure things out just as he did and stuff. And you know what? I remember as a kid looking back at Uncle Buck, and I told my mom this. I was like, I was very young when I told her this. I said, you know what? I wonder how Macaulay Culkin's feeling about this. And she goes, well, what about his kids? And I'm like, and I didn't think about that because I was just thinking of my childhood. I was like a little
Right.
kid thinking of so, how somebody else would feel, but not knowing that he had kids and how they were dealing with it.
Right. And I'll be honest, I actually didn't know that he had children. I
Me
had no
either.
idea. I didn't know a lot about his personal life at all, as a matter of fact. I had no idea how good of friends he was with John Hughes. And speaking of Macaulay Culkin, I love that he pointed out, he's like, we always associate John Hughes with Molly Ringwald. I made 3 movies with John. Molly made 3 movies with John Hughes, and John Candy made 9 movies with John Hughes. That is a huge number of movies to make. They were good friends. I love that. So because I didn't know that about them either.
I didn't know that either myself. I didn't keep a track record of how many films each person was in, but it's
Mm-mm.
just crazy to know that John Candy was in a lot of John Hughes movies and part of our life, just as Molly Ringwald was part of our lives.
That means, John, that you and I have several more movies of John Hughes's to go through, because I
Yes,
don't
we
think we've
do.
gone through. I was trying to remember how many. I mean, we've done a significant, but there's more. Uh, and we always have fun talking about but maybe we need to do Home Alone, because, or have you
Well,
already talked about Home
I
Alone? You
did.
probably have.
Yeah, I did Home Alone 1 and 2 for Christmas. So, but There is a couple of John Candy movies that we haven't done
We'll
either.
do them. But the Home Alone one, the scene, I have to tell you for your viewers that don't know this about me, because I'm sure I've mentioned it, but it's been a while. The the character he played, the Polka King,
Yeah,
that
the Polka.
is, yeah, the polka. And then he's like, we sold 650 units, and she's like, in Chicago, and he said, no, Sheboygan. That's about an hour from me. It's very close. So that scene was a huge deal when it came out, that movie, especially in Wisconsin, because Sheboygan is such a well-known city, and it's maybe, I don't know, 40 minutes north of Milwaukee. So it just was a big deal, and he did such a great job, and just that does that lovable character.
He does, and you know what? The characters that he plays are small roles, but he gives them a backstory. And in 24 hours, he had a whole backstory on this guy who was the polka guy, and he went through this whole entire thing, and it's just total improvisation. Catherine O'Hara was blown up with him whenever they're inside the back of the truck, and he goes, "You smell that?" And it's actually the rat smell coming from his jacket. It was great what he did, and I didn't even know he was from Canada, to be honest with you. I thought he
No,
was
I
from
didn't either.
Chicago
Yeah, me too.
because because of how John Hughes puts him in Chicago.
Right.
So, and he has a Chicago accent, that very
He
thick one,
for sure.
to make me
Really.
believe he was actually part of Chicago. So I didn't even know he was from originally from Canada. So that was
Mhm.
something else I learned. Not to mention, guys, I know that people's like, how do you not know that? There's Wikipedia. I don't look up
Yeah.
certain things, and I'm just mind baffled by it and mind blown by it. It's so awesome to actually
Yeah.
learn something new about John Candy.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch that scene too, because it was like, well, I saw that movie Home Alone in the theaters with my mother, who was like, we have to go see this movie. And I mean, I was probably, I know you were quite young, but
Yeah.
I was probably 20, somewhere between 20 and 22 when it came out. I can't remember exactly, and doing the math is too hard for me. So we'll say 21.
Okay.
Well, my mom was like, yeah, and I'm like, Mom, that's a kid's movie. And she's like, my mother, the reason I love movies so much is because of my mother. And so we went to see it, and we just loved it. We just laughed. And when John Candy was on and he was talking about the polka, because here's another weird fact about my backstory. When I was in middle school, we were not allowed to have rock and roll at our dances. So I am not kidding you. They hired a polka band, and we had polka parties. My husband does not believe this happened, but it truly, truly happened. So the polka, I actually know how to polka.
That's hilarious.
It's like my husband still does not believe me to this day. He's like, nobody would hire a polka band.
They did.
They sure did.
Too bad there
Sometimes
was
I
like
get,
no pictures to show that happened. That would have been
I
great. That would be
know.
great.
Carol and the Cloverleafs, I think, was the name of them. And I
That
think
sounds
they
about
might
right for a
still
polka
be
band.
around.
But I was actually 5 years old when that movie came out for Home Alone, and I didn't get the jokes at the time. And then going back and watching it as an adult and everything, I'm laughing my butt off at this. You know what I'm saying? As a kid, I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, I want to see Macaulay Culkin. I'm not into this boring stuff. And then you realize the boring stuff is just as interesting as Macaulay Culkin
right,
as
right.
an adult
Yeah,
going into it and watching it. And I really love the back and forth with Catherine O'Hara, John
yeah,
Candy. Everything just works. And then even whenever you have the National Lampoon's Vacation with Chevy Chase, he did another thing. He made up had the same character from the last sitcom thing, like Saturday Night Live, and brought it into that. And he does a fantastic job within the last 5 minutes of the film.
yeah. And as I recall from the documentary, they said they had a different ending altogether, and everybody
Yeah,
hated it. And so they brought him in last minute to, and I think they said it was you, like you said, it was a character he had already created. So they
yep,
brought him in to do it. And I mean, when you think of Vacation, there's so many funny moments in that film. There's so much to talk about, but everybody remembers John Candy at the end of that film.
exactly. Because every single meme that you find on National Lampoon's is John Candy goes, "Sorry, park's closed today."
Yeah, yeah,
So it just shows you how iconic that ending was, and if they went up with that ending, we wouldn't have had that iconic ending with John Candy. We wouldn't have that
Yeah.
ride
Well, the
of
movie
him.
might not have even done as well because I mean, Chevy Chase as well has made some clunkers. I mean,
Right.
it could have gone the way of, and I'm not saying that John Candy made the movie, but it certainly made that ending
It made a
just
huge
hit.
impact on it.
Yeah,
Just to see him at the final ending of it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it seems like the perfect ending. It seems like they almost had the ending and then wrote it backwards, and then you find out that didn't happen, and it's just blows your mind.
It really is. And then another thing too I want to bring up is with Macaulay Culkin, looking out for Macaulay Culkin on on the set, and he ends up looking at Macaulay. He's like, "Are you okay?" Because he
Yeah,
spotted the fact that his own father, Macaulay's father, was a jerk
yeah.
to
And we should
him.
probably say you're talking about Uncle Buck because they never did a
Yep.
scene together in Home
No,
Alone. I know we
yeah,
were
I'm
just talking
jumping.
about Home
Yeah,
Alone. Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's okay. I just wanted to make a point, and you're right. And you
yeah.
and I loved that scene, especially in Uncle Buck, where he's asking him the questions, and then they
Right.
talked about that scene, and even he was saying like John Candy was couldn't believe like how well Macaulay Culkin could keep up. I mean, he was Macaulay Culkin was a great actor. I'm glad that his career is kind of that he's sort of able to come back if he wants to now as an actor. And when he walked away because of his tremendously bad childhood with his father, I believe he called him a monster. And so he really did look up to John Candy because John Candy did show interest in how he was doing.
And protected him on the set and just was
Mhm.
there for him. That right there in the documentary made me tear up because
Yeah,
the fact that anything with father-son moments, even though that they're not biological father and son, gets me every single time.
right, right. It was so lovely and the way that he was just reflecting on. I mean, Macaulay Culkin, I have not really seen a lot of interviews with, but he comes across as he's so insightful and smart and funny, you
He
know.
is, and
And
then
so
he
I liked
said
how he
right,
talked about him.
yeah, and he also said, "Think of it like this, I'm close to the same age that I was when I was first introduced to John Candy. I'm 44. He was 35. So 7 years of difference of it, and that's just mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you think about it, when you put it in perspective like that, it's so interesting and insightful. I mean, he was
Right.
very reflective, and he clearly remembered a lot of what happened, even though he was a child. You know, I think he probably remembered a lot of the good things that happened on the sets when things were going well for him. And I
Right, I
guess he
think so
was a
too.
little bit older. He was probably 9 or 10 when Home Alone came out, maybe a little bit younger, but he was pretty young.
Right. But it's just awesome to be able to see John Candy being the protective father to
Yeah,
and stuff and being the guideline for him. I also like how he said, "Man, I was not expecting you to be so sharp with me going back and forth with me on the interrogation thing."
yeah. They had a lot of chemistry on screen, especially in that one scene. But you know, if you think about it, John Candy had a lot of chemistry with a lot of the kids that he worked with. He seemed to have a real affection for working with children, and I think that worked really well in a lot of the roles he took
I
throughout his
agree.
career.
Then we go into the thing with Tom Hanks talking about him with Splash. And I like how now this might be maybe a little bit of a thing with John Candy, maybe a little bit of his character, where he's talking about another actor, which you never really see him really do. And he's saying that Tom Hanks can't act his way out of a paper bag. And then
That was
Tom
funny.
reflecting on, and I like how they do that. And it's not to disrespect John Candy, it's a self reflection on Tom Hanks himself and saying, hey, look, I didn't know what John was trying to do.
Yeah.
I didn't know he wanted me to play with him in what he was doing with improvisation. But once I got the hang of it, we ended up rewriting this whole entire scene in in the office.
Yeah, because Tom Hanks does not come from an improv background either. I don't believe. I don't really know
No,
what a lot about his, but I'm guessing he's more like read lines, you know. And some of the actors that were in the documentary definitely had improv background, but not all of them. And so, you know, it might have been harder for people like because I think Catherine O'Hara was on SCTV too, right?
I
She's
want to
got
say,
an
yeah, she
improv.
was
I can't
because
remember.
remember, yeah, she was on there because
That's
remember
what I thought.
she played the role of with the beaver, the mother,
Oh, that's right. That was so funny. That was
and
so funny.
right, and then Tom Hanks is like, I don't know what I'm watching, but I swear I'm losing it right now because of how funny it is.
Yeah, yeah, that was so funny. It was great. It was great that Tom, and I have to be honest with you, John, I haven't seen movie Splash since it came out. It's been a really long time, so I don't remember a lot. I mean, I remember the movie, but not as much as I remember, for instance, Uncle Buck or
I remember certain
Great
scenes in it.
Outdoors, that kind of thing.
I remember John Candy looking like this is supposed to be young John Candy as a kid looking underneath girls' dresses as a kid, dropping change. And then as he gets older, you see how much the love that he has for his brother. And, I like that part in the office where he's like, look, love does not happen every day for everybody. Not certainly not for me, but it happens to you. So you need to go out there and get it. But this is the part that makes me laugh every single time. I remember when they're busting inside the little aquarium where they're holding the mermaid, right? They
Hmm.
have her in a tank, and it's this government funded thing. And the security guards are going in there, and John Candy's soaking his feet in the water where the mermaid used to be. He goes, "Hey, fellas." He goes, and he goes, "Come on, the water's fine." And then there's also this other thing where he's acting like a Russian scientist. He goes, "Oh yes, small penis." This, but that's all I remember from the Splash movie. I would like to actually rewatch that and do that one.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to because I haven't seen it for so long. I don't remember. I've probably seen parts of it since, but not the whole way through. And I don't know if it wasn't streaming or there's no particular reason I haven't rewatched it, but I just haven't.
Right, it's on Disney Plus that you can watch it on
Oh, I
right
have
now.
Disney Plus, so
But yeah, I wouldn't mind revisiting that for a childhood thing because my mom let me watch it. She rented it from the video store, and I wound up liking it as a kid. But I haven't watched it since I was a kid, so that's gonna be a good one to do the nostalgia rating and the stripping
maybe you and I
away.
should do talk about that one at some point in the future.
Most definitely, I would love to do
Oh,
that one with you.
Julio. Speaking of cool, one of my favorite John Candy films, and they didn't mention it at all, I don't think, was Cool Runnings.
Oh, I love Cool Runnings.
It's such a great film. And I remember, so when my kids were growing up, they're adults now, but we had some friends, and every summer, two of them would do backyard movies. And one of them had a younger son. So we always had to do a PG or G movie, which was fine. It was great. I mean, I like all movies. I'm fine with family films. And one year they chose Cool Runnings, and I hadn't seen it in a long, long time. And I loved it so much. I just enjoyed that. That was one of my favorite outdoor movies that they've done in that series. But
I love that
it,
movie.
it's just so funny.
It's funny. It pulls on your heartstrings. John Candy
Totally.
is the only one who is defending these guys from Jamaica. And my other thing that I like is Sokka. He goes, "Kiss the lucky egg, man." And then John winds up going to the board of the Olympics. He goes, "Later, man," or something like that. He winds up saying something to. I just love the chemistry that he had with those guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another one we have to do as
Yeah,
well.
I know. I'm on board with that one anytime because it's just such a great, just it's such a heartwarming film. And I think it's actually based on a true story.
Yeah, it's based on a true story, believe it or not. And yes, there are some things that they have changed within the story to
Sure.
make it more of the underdog kind of fight to it, but it's completely way different than
Yeah.
what the movie actually is. But still, great movie. I definitely recommend it. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Because I have the whole thing where John Candy's first movie was 1941 with Steven Spielberg,
Hmm.
and then he goes into making Stripes, and you can see this one interview where this woman is just trying to crush him with it because of his weight and stuff like that. And he goes, and he doesn't even think about his weight issues or anything. He's an actor. He doesn't even care about that. But
Hmm.
yet, this one interviewer is trying to lay it into him. Hey, look, does anybody else say anything about your weight? And
Yeah.
then in Stripes, he was also uncomfortable with the whole entire weight issue.
Right. Well, it's interesting you say that because there was one moment in the documentary that really struck me. And that is, I don't think it was a woman. I think it was a man, because they did show a lot of interviews that he had with people. And you could see he was fairly uncomfortable doing interviews. I don't think he liked it, but I think he didn't like it because everybody kept bringing up his weight. And one person, I think it was a man, said to him, "Does your weight bother you?" And he just laughed and said, "No, does it bother you?" Or something like that. It was like this real quick jab right back at him, and he laughed. And I thought he was intentionally trying to tell this guy to go shove it, but he did
Yes.
it in such a nice way
And
that I
clever and
wonder, yeah, I
classy
wonder
way.
if the guy even figured it out that he just got insulted, because he literally laughed as he said it to be kind of like, "Oh shucks." I think he was a very smart man, and I don't think people understood how smart he was.
No. In almost every single 80s movie, it's like, let's make fun of the fat guy. Let's
Yeah.
do fart jokes. Let's make fun of his weight. And John Candy was not about that. They even mentioned Abbott and Costello made fun of their own weight. They also mentioned some other actors as well. I like how John Candy is like, no, I'm not that person that you go to for that. And then
Right.
he was actually losing weight, and then like, oh no, now we want you fat. Do not
Yeah.
do that anymore. I'm like, wow. So the
Yeah.
industry is now trying to run his health, and
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I'm looking at it the fact that the industry is what killed him.
Right. Right. I mean, and they talked about um how he wasn't feeling well, and I mean we can talk about this later when we get to the end of our conversation, but I agree with that. I mean, and I also think he didn't know what they wanted, because it was like, "Oh, he lost, what did he lose, 100 pounds or something?"
70.
And then
He lost 70 pounds.
they were like, "Oh no, we don't want you skinny, we need you this way or that way." But honestly, all of his characters he played, his weight didn't matter for any of them.
No, because they could be played by someone skinny, someone fat. It doesn't matter.
Right.
What ma- and that's what I liked about it was the fact that he was so diverse into the characters that he plays that none of
Right.
that mattered. And even on Rookie of the Year, for example, which is a movie I've reviewed recently, he did that as a favor. Like they had all the scenes already shot, right? They called John up and say, "Hey, look, we're doing this Chicago Cops movie. This little kid that broke his arm. We need an announcer." So he does all this part of improvisation, probably, and rocks it, and then leaves.
Yeah. Was that the one he had one day? There was the
Yeah,
one, yeah, okay. Yeah, that where he came in and had one day to film it because he had no time. Because he was really a busy actor, which is interesting because they talked about him worrying about drying out, which I think shows like the humanity, as I was saying before, and like the anxiety and like the real things that people worry about, he worried about as well.
right. I like the fact that they showed the vulnerability of him and not putting him on this mantle of this guy had no worries, no flaws, nothing like that. But I like how they gave him more of a humanization with him and to show those struggles to where people can say, okay, I struggle with that too. So I can relate to him on that
Right.
level.
Yes, exactly. I mean, they showed him as, I think, a real human, and they didn't scandalize any part of his life, but he wasn't really a guy who had a lot of scandals anyway, or any scandals.
Oh,
So, I mean, I think he lived the best life he could and did the best he could. And I think they showed that in this film. And that's what I really loved about it. I think that they just showed how human he really was.
I think so too. And this is hands down probably one of my favorite documentaries this year. I really enjoyed it. But there's nothing really else that I need to say about this documentary other than the fact that this is a great documentary. You guys need to check it out on Amazon Prime. And it's only like an hour and 55 minutes, but within those hour and 55 minutes, you don't even feel the runtime with it because you're so enthused into this whole entire deal with John Candy that you don't care about the runtime at
Right, right.
all.
I think they probably cut a lot too.
Right.
It's probably had hundreds of hours worth of interview time, and I thought it was the perfect amount of time. I think that was it. But I also think the way that they portrayed his death was really sad. I didn't really know that he was on set when he died, or that
Yeah,
he
I knew
was
about
reading a
that.
Bible. That was really sad. I mean, I probably knew it at the time. It's just been so long since he
Right.
passed away. I actually didn't even realize it was so many years. But when you get to be my age, sometimes you're like, "Oh, I thought that was last week, and then it was 2 years ago."
Right, and I remember as a kid, like I said before, whenever I found out he died, and I just was just sad and devastated by it
Yeah,
because I feel like I grew up with John Candy as a kid, and then now he's gone.
right.
It was like as if he was my father and I lost him, you know? Then there's also let's see, there's also the Spaceballs thing that they talked about as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We can talk about that and then we can wrap that part up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen that as well, so you'll have to guide. I mean, I remember him
Well,
in it, and it was that's just such a great movie altogether from beginning to end. It's such a great movie.
I only remember pieces of it myself.
Oh, do you? It's
Yeah,
very funny because it's a spoof on, obviously on
Star
Star
Wars,
Wars, and he plays like this
Chewbacca role.
Chewbacca, but it's a dog.
Right,
It's just it's very clever. The whole film is pretty clever.
I agree. On off the whole Wagons thing. At first, I thought that was his last movie, but then he made Canadian Bacon.
Yeah. Yeah, or
And
what, because he was filming that one film that probably never got finished. And then he said he was going to direct something, but I don't know if he ever directed it or not. Do you know?
oh, Hostage for a Day. That was the one that they were working on whenever they did the reshoots.
Okay. When he passed away?
Yeah, I believe
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, his last appearance was in Wagons in 1994, and then
Yeah.
Canadian Bacon a year later. But Wagons was his last movie, and then I guess they had one more movie that he wrapped up with, which was Canadian Bacon before he died.
Yeah, they were probably still editing
Yeah,
it then. Yeah,
right.
that makes
So
sense.
yeah, I remember going to see Wagons though as a kid though.
I don't know if I've ever seen that one or not. I have to look at the description. It's possible because I saw so many movies. I love movies. So I used to go to a lot, but I don't remember everything I've ever seen at this. I don't know why I don't write this down. I should have been writing it down from I used to write down the books I read. Can't remember those anymore either.
It's all good. It's all
I
good.
know.
But guys, I hope that you guys check out this documentary. It's a fantastic documentary. You'll be laughing, you'll be crying. You'll be like Beth and I being emotionally damaged after this to where we need
Mhm.
something happy and more uplifting to watch with John Candy probably. But tell us what you think. Did you like this documentary? Did you not like this documentary? Tell us in the comments below. And also, too, what's your favorite John Candy movie? We would actually like to know that too. So give us a thumbs up. Go on ahead, subscribe, and all that other good stuff. Go on ahead and visit Beth for the Made for TV Movie podcast. She has a fantastic podcast over there. It's
Right
right
there.
there on. So go and check it out. Beth, do you have any announcements as far as what you want going on in your show or anything?
No, we had filmmaker Dustin Morrow on a couple months ago, and he wants to come back on again. So we're going to be doing that. But most recently, I've actually been invited to write an article about Kiss meets the Phantom of the Opera, which you may or may not know is a hugely mythological sort of. It's kind of created its own world. The Kiss TV movie that some say is the worst movie ever made. Some say
I heard of
it's
it.
not as bad. I just recently saw it this summer, so I'm writing an article about that and doing some research, and it's really fascinating because a lot happened for that movie to happen, and it's an interesting movie to say the least.
Okay. But yeah, I've heard of it. Never got a chance to watch it or anything. So
It's an interesting movie.
okay.
It's very
So
70s.
so guys, I do have Danny Elfman's sister-in-law, Anastasia Elfman, coming in. No, yeah. Tomorrow, the 29th, she'll be on here. We're going to be talking about Ghost Ship. We're going to be reviewing that movie scene by scene. But we also did our trial of Jenny Curran last Friday, so check out that on the YouTube channel right now. Basically, what we did, Beth, we ended up putting her on trial on the stand to see if she was a villain or not a villain.
And I guess we'll have to watch to find out.
Right. Exactly.
That's
All right,
awesome.
guys. Thank you. Thank you so much. But guys, that's going to be it as far as this review goes. Go on ahead, do all the stuff I just told you to do, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Later.